Good afternoon. This is your lecture for week 11, day 2. Following in your syllabus, this would be April 23rd, and we're talking about chapter 18. I'm doing this video from my home with Governor Evers' Safer at Home measure. We're going to see how this works out today. A little harder with the videos, with the smaller screen. I will play just a snippet to get you started, and then, of course, please take the time to work through the Canvas videos on your own, using your text as a guide to help you. So we talked about the Romantic era. We were firmly planted in that the last class period after Beethoven ushered us in. And we talked about the miniature and the grandiose, the two extremes that we found in this Romantic time period. And today we're going to take a closer look at what that meant for opera. So very often 19th century opera is considered that golden age of opera. It was very popular everywhere. We had lots of opera houses. We had opera coming out of lots of different countries with composers, not just centered in Italy, but Germany, France, Bohemia, Russia. The showcase was fantastic. The plots were elaborate, the orchestra was growing in size, and the human voice was becoming very virtuosic. They were really stretching the limits of what the singer could do. There's two romantic themes that we see paralleled through all the way here with our different operas that we'll look at today, and that's the breaking down of barriers between the arts, the combining of poetry and philosophy. Leader, I think, was definitely a leading direction in this, the union of music and drama. With opera, composers pondered putting more meaning into their work. They wanted their message to come out through their work. So much so that one of the operas we'll look at today by Wagner, he actually even calls it a music drama. He gives it a different name. Opera plots were usually coming from very successful novels of this time period. Ivanhoe, Les Mis would be two examples of novels that were written in the Romantic era. The bigger style, or the grand opera, lends itself to lighting being more important, more elaborate scenery, more elaborate costumes, and the whole work just being longer and more grandiose. In that classical era, we saw a trend towards realism. More realistic plots, more realistic characters, more middle-class characters in particular. Here, as we're in the Romantic period, that's giving way to imagination and more fantastic stories. We're also going to see nationalism. We've touched on this a couple different times, but this nationalistic style becomes very important in the 19th century in a lot of our different genres. So the composers are trying to put a piece of their heritage or their country into their operas. So whether that's like Weber in Germany, who's putting folk tales into his plots, or whether it's in France with the grand opera or the nationalistic operas using political propaganda in their plots. Puccini, coming out of Italy, was using a term called verismo, which means more realistic plots, more realistic people. And then, as I said, we've got Wagner, who's calling his pieces music dramas. So again, combining all those aspects, music, poetry, philosophy, acting, scenery, drama, all of it being of equal importance is what Wagner was calling music drama. He even had a word for this. Gesamtkunstwerk, and it's a German word that meant everything being of equal importance. Bel canto, singing, was also a style that we'll hear, especially in soprano and tenor roles. If you hear a line that's very melodic, where it is never covered up by the orchestra, it is the top line, it's very ornamental, it's very show-offy. Bel canto singing is a way that we can describe that. The overture is also important. We talked about that last class time that we were together, about the overture becoming a standalone piece. So the overture of the opera is very important too, because it often would be pulled apart from the opera and performed at a concert as a standalone piece. So this overture becomes more involved. It follows more of a form, usually that sonata allegro form. So we're going to take a look at 3 different operas today, coming out of 3 different traditions, 2 different countries. We're going to look at a piece by Verdi, Verdi is your Italian, and of course the center of opera tradition came out of Italy. We've been watching it grow for a couple centuries here. It remains a very popular style in Italy. Most of the Italian composers are devoting themselves to opera. That was the vehicle of choice, or where they felt they would get the most recognition or the biggest career. They were writing for singers that really were becoming stars in their own right. The 19th century saw concerts being very popular. The people would follow their favorite singers, their favorite performers. They were impressed by virtuosity. So we definitely see this bel canto style of singing in our Italian opera. So never allowing that voice to be overshadowed by the orchestra. Strong, exciting plots were typical of Italian opera. Most of them were still ending unhappy though. With Verdi in Italy, he was the son of a shopkeeper. He began his career as an organist and then a director of music. Worked for the Milan Opera House La Scala, which is still an active opera house and prestigious opera house today. He wrote many operas, 24 of them. Some of them got him in a little bit of trouble with the government, as he would voice his libertarian views a little bit too strongly in some of the plots. There's 6 of them that are still commonly performed today: La Traviata, Rigoletto, Il Trovatore. So very popular. He was an advocate for publishing rights, one of the first composers to really advocate for combating musical piracy, which is still a problem today. People downloading, copying music without purchasing it first or giving that income to that composer. Verdi was certainly a composer of international standing. He composed not just for the elite, but for the main public, what everybody wanted to hear. In these romantic operas, we're also going to hear the role of the orchestra expand. We still have passages of recitative. That's still where we get the most action in the dialogue, but it has a fuller orchestration underneath it. There's not quite such a diverse between secco and accompanied. You're going to hear more orchestra underneath that recitative. The aria is still for reflection. Arias can stand alone in a concert setting. We still do see strophic form a lot in our arias as well. There's ensembles, more ensembles in romantic opera. We started to see that even with Mozart in the classical opera. The ensembles sometimes have some recitative, or that conversation moving the plot forward, back and forth, but the ensemble pieces also can be long, rather intricate dialogues or intricate arias sung together too. The orchestra tends to be a little bit smaller in the arias and the duets with so much going on, but we see and hear a lot of rich harmonies. So with part 2 of the next video, we will be taking a closer look at the 3 operas that you have on your Canvas assignment for today.